Are you curious about bodies, pleasure, and possibilities? And what about curious about what others are up to on the planet when it comes to pleasure, sex, and play? Have you considered what pleasure can do for your life, your body, and your bank account? Do you know something magical, delightful, and out of this world orgasmic is not only possible for you, but totally available to you? If you're ready to be the magical, sexual, sexy beast you know you can be, and you just need the tools to get there, you're in the right place. Now, here's the host of The Pleasure Zone, sensual movement artist, relationship and sex alchemist, Milica Jelenic.
Welcome, sweet pleasure seekers. You're listening to The Pleasure Zone. Why? Because you're a genius and you happen to find the pleasure zone probably right at the time when you needed it the most. Especially if you've never heard this podcast or radio show as when it's live, or if you've never heard it in podcast form before and you're like, I just stumbled upon this crazy episode. Well, you stumbled upon a great one. Tonight we're going to be talking about cold and hot play. What? What's that? Well, I'll get into what that is. And if you've never listened to this show, The Pleasure Zone, you're going to notice there's 252 episodes or more in podcast form that you can find on inspiredchoicesnetwork.com. You can also find many of the different podcasts on about 50 different, podcast form, 70 different podcast locations, including places like iHeartRadio and Apple Podcasts, and all the top ones, Spreaker, Spotify, all of those. And they are also live streamed on over 50 different, being live streamed right now on over 50 different platforms. If you want to know what all of those partners are, you can go to inspiredchoicesnetwork.com, and at the very top there's a tab for that you'll be able to find the partners under. So it's pretty phenomenal what we have going on here on Inspired Choices Network. So if you're actually somebody who's listening to and you're like, oh, I kind of like the idea of having my own radio show, definitely connect with our CEO, Christine McIver, and she can talk to you about that, because it is a fantastic way to get your voice out there. And for me, it's been a savior for my marriage, quite frankly. My husband probably wouldn't be able to stand listening to me for an hour straight. Loves me, but shuts off when I start talking nonstop for like an hour. So this is my forum to save my marriage. And for those of you who find that you love to talk a lot and maybe you'd like to be listened to by more than one person, this is a super amazing platform to be on. We have a chat room, we have different ways to call in, and with all the different places that we live stream and that we podcast, it's a no-brainer. It's a great team to be part of. It's a great family to be in, and it's just so much fun. And there's so many options for also writing articles and being on TV with this station as well. So much to offer and have. So yes, my podcast did save my marriage. In fact, I'm sure it did. So what do we talk about on this show? Well, one of the things that I've studied the most in my life are two things that I like to bring together on this show, and that's bodies and that's sex. And so I have studied a lot about anatomy in different formats. I haven't necessarily I actually did take some anatomy in university, but I didn't go on to become a doctor or a nurse or anything like that. What I have chosen to go on to become is somebody who facilitates wellness through a holistic and sort of an inventive biophysical approach to health. So very inventive. And biophysical approaches to health really have to do with how our bodies receive energy, more so than how they interact biochemically by, say, for example, taking a pill and then your body reacts biochemically. I work with biophysics. So it's a lot of fun, and I love facilitating wellness and health through the different means that I offer. And if you would like to know more about what I do offer, you can find that on my website at milicajelenic.com for the health aspects, and for the sex and pleasure aspects, I will be having a a website coming out, hopefully in the next few months. There's just always my life and my daily practice with my business that has actually distracted me from creating the website fully. So it's always been in the works for the last little while, and I do hope to have it up soon. If I got any volunteers out there who would like to build me a website, I'd be happy to talk to you about that. What else can I tell you? Oh, right now I'm also working on a project for anybody who is a parent, mother or father, for a child under the age of 4. I'm actually interviewing parents for a book that I would like to put out to the world to assist parents getting back on track with sex and intimacy after having children. And I would like to interview as many parents as I possibly can to get their feedback and information. And then whoever says yes to the interview for the book, again, their names will not be mentioned in the book. Your name, if you choose to be part of it, will not be mentioned in the book. But I will probably use some of the information that you share with me about some of the struggles and some of the solutions that you've come up with, as well as for anybody who says yes to it, I'm offering them 3 sex and intimacy coaching sessions with me. My gift to you if you choose this. And how do you get a hold of me? You can find me on social media. You can find me through my website. You can write to me at milicajelenic@hotmail.com. That's one of the options. I have a lot of emails, but that's a good one to find me. Just say, read the Sex and Intimacy book for parents, and I will send you the information that I'm looking for. So I have a form for you to fill out, and then we go on to some of the talking in person situations or via Zoom, depending on where you're located. So now that I got some of my housekeeping underway, I'm going to move into this amazing topic of cold and hot play. So what is cold and hot play? So for those of you who literally are not familiar with this, that's cool. It is pretty much exactly what it says, cold and hot play. So it's another way of calling it is temperature play. And people have been kind of exploring this whole temperature play, I'm guessing, for a very long time. I was thinking about, what would be the history of, for example, temperature play. There is some obvious history to some other kinks. But this one, I'm thinking probably since the time that man/woman had access to fires, probably since human beings have had access to ice. We've probably had some kind of relationship with using those different temperatures to experience different sensations and to kind of start to explore what they feel like on our bodies. That's my guess. I'm guessing we were probably pretty curious beings, and we probably tested some of these things out. But I have no archaeological evidence for that. So I'm just going on my intuition on that. So don't quote me on that. That's just my thoughts on this. So that's kind of my thought on where did this come from? Where did we get the idea of cold and hot play? Do our bodies respond to temperatures? Well, yes, they do. Right? When you go outside and it's a cold day, I live in Canada, and we've had some cold days. We've even had some minus 20 Celsius weather already in November, and now we've had plus 5 Celsius weather. So the weather is constantly changing, and our bodies react to those changes. And quite often our bodies will, you might go out in the cold and some people feel invigorated by the cold. Some people feel like hiding from the cold. And then some people feel invigorated by the heat, or some people feel like, turning on the air conditioning and they want to avoid the heat. So our bodies definitely have reactions to temperature. Now, if you've never experienced a reaction in your body to specific temperatures, like hot or cold, if you've always felt neutral, I would beg to have you explore that a little. For example, if you are near a flame, for example, and you get close to it where you can feel the heat, just not that you're touching the flame, that's your personal choice if you want to touch it, but getting close to the flame, and just notice, how does your body react? Is there fear? Does that fear then send a signal through your body that has your body turned on, or does that fear, so we're just going to call it fear, does that fear send a signal to your body to have your body turned on? So I say that we'll just call it fear because most people assume that when you're near fire, there's fear, although a lot of times that's not true. A lot of times you get near different temperatures like heat, for example, like a fire, and your body might have a response that's comforted. I have like a wood stove in my house, and I'm super comforted by being near it. So I'll sometimes just sit in front of it, and the heat coming off of it, I'll feel like I had a suntan after 10 minutes, but my body feels so happy when it's got super heat coming at it. So just as an experimental play, just to notice how your body reacts to different temperatures. And we're going to start not from the sexual perspective. We're going to just start with you and your body having awareness of temperatures and how your body reacts to temperatures. And if you've always assumed, too, that you really, really like hot things, I encourage you to try out cold things, too. So how does your body respond to, say, ice cubes? If you get one out of out of your freezer or whatever, and, whether you're holding it in your hand or you're putting it in your mouth, whatever way that you can experience the sensation of the cold, just be with it and see how your body responds to it. Now, when you're either experiencing the hot or the cold, I encourage you to relax your body. So how do you do that? It's one thing to say relax your body, and it's another to actually do it, right? So, for example, while I sit in front of my fireplace, what I'll do is I'll deep breathe. I'll get really connected to my body. I'll feel my bum, and I'll feel my feet, and I'll deep breathe in and then breathe out. And yeah, I do make noises when I breathe. I like making noises. It's fun. And you can make it silly. Just like breathe in and then breathe out, whatever. It's fun. And I actually do that with my daughter when she's really stressed. We'll breathe in, make silly noises, and breathe out and make silly noises because it's not so damn serious then, and it's so much easier to relax when your body can let go of the stress and it can start to bring in some of the happy endorphins and let you start to relax. So relaxing into the temperature can be a lot of fun. So you're sitting there in front of a fire, for example, or your finger in front of a flame, and you're just going to breathe in and breathe out. And so you can breathe in, if you really want to count for this, you can breathe in for like the count of 5 and breathe out for the count of like 7 or 8. And if you want to breathe in for less than you breathe out, so you want to really get your body to just chill and relax and start to feel and really notice the sensations in your body. So even if your hand is near the flame, notice the other parts of your body that are responding. So, if you have your hand near a flame and you're like feeling that heat, maybe your legs are also getting warm. Maybe your genitals are warming up. Just notice, again, just noticing how your body is reacting to these different temperatures. And that in itself is a self-exploration with heat or cold that is totally safe and a totally fun way to start to introduce your body to the idea that you can relax into the cold and the hot and also relax into receiving pleasure. I'm a huge fan of relaxing into receiving pleasure. So, yeah, like whether you're sitting in front of the fire or your hand near a flame or you're holding an ice cube. So you're holding an ice cube. Again, this can be really cold, and some people get quite shocked by it, or their body assumes like a shock sort of response. You can just hold it, be present, feel your feet, feel your body, notice your body's reactions, hold it, and just be present with the cold and see where your body receives any sensations other than where the ice cube is touching you, whether it's your mouth or your hand or wherever you've placed the ice cube. Just notice what other parts of your body are waking up and noticing the hot or the cold as well. you can actually go test this out right now because we're going to be heading to a commercial break. So if you have something that's hot near you or something that's cold, you can test this out during our commercial break. So you're listening to The Pleasure Zone here on Inspired Choices Network, and we'll be right back after this commercial.
Are you secretly a voyeur, wondering what's going on in other people's sex lives? What if now is the time for a totally different sexual evolution? Are you interested in people who are pioneers of different sexual and pleasurable practices? Lean in now with Milica Jelenic, where she will entice you and your body to know your own pleasure zone. On the Pleasure Zone radio show with sensual movement artist Milica Jelenic, you'll receive tools, inspiration, and a foundation to allow yourself to receive more in your sex life, and quite possibly other areas of your life as well. Listen for The Pleasure Zone with Milica every Monday at 8 p.m. Eastern Time, 7 p.m. Central Time, 6 p.m. Mountain Time, and 5 p.m. Pacific Time on InspiredChoicesNetwork.com.
Are you a subject matter expert? Are you here to share your expertise with an audience waiting to hear from you in only the way you can deliver? Are you ready to have your voice amplified across the airwaves? Inspired Choices Network has a global radio platform streaming to millions of people across the world. Professionally produced and supported by an accomplished team every step of the way, you can broadcast from anywhere in the world, knowing your voice matters, and we ensure it is delivered with ease and efficiency. Eager to hear your message, the world awaits. Contact us today to become an Inspired Choices Network radio host. Email becomeahost@inspiredchoicesnetwork.com.
This is The Pleasure Zone with sensual movement artist Milica Jelenic. To participate in the program today from the U.S., call 815-880-TALK. That's 815-880-8255. From Canada, dial 613-800-8736. Or you can Skype us at InspiredChoicesNetwork.com. Or send your questions or comments via email to info@MilicaJelenic.com. Now, back to the program.
Hello, sweet pleasure seekers. Welcome back to the Pleasure Zone. And tonight we're talking about cold and hot play. If you're just joining me now, you'll maybe want to tap into the first segment of the show, but I'll give you a little quick recap. So one of the things that I was mentioning is that if you've never experienced or really noticed how your body responds to hot or cold, you can do some little self-exploration where you can either put your hand near a flame, again, not in it, but near it so you don't get burned, and just allow your body to relax by doing some deep breathing in for 5 and then out for 8 to 10 seconds, and just being present with your body and noticing how your body responds to either hot or, say, for example, holding an ice cube and responding to cold. Now, ice cubes and fires are not the only ways that you can get temperature going on in your body, and we'll talk about some options on that. But I think there's a whole lot of other things that need to be explored first and discussed first before we actually go into the nitty-gritty of how-tos with hot and cold play. So again, the first part of the exploration is self-exploration with hot and cold, and knowing how to relax into different sensations, relaxing into the hot, relaxing into the cold, receiving those energies in your body and just noticing where and how your body responds, and then allowing your body to also notice where there might be pleasure that's going on that you might have never noticed before. Those secret areas of pleasure that are waking up. So that can be a lot of fun. And then when and if you are inviting a partner into the whole idea of hot and cold play, just like any sex and just like anything really, I think there needs to be, and I know there needs to be communication about this. So I'll give you an example of why I think there needs to be communication is that if you're with your lover and out of nowhere you get some hot wax going and you just pour it on them without their consent or knowledge or previous agreement, it can be alarming. It could cause, a fight. It could cause a lot of tension, breakup. They could respond with an automatic response in their body of harming you. They might turn around and punch you. You never know. So, conversation. How do you have these conversations? How do you communicate what you would like to try? One of my favorite ways to have these discussions is actually sometimes a form of communication that doesn't involve words. And no, I'm not necessarily talking telepathic, but if you are telepathic, congratulations, and that is one way to do it. But you can actually communicate this with yourself first, again, creating like a list of hot and cold play, that things you would like to try, things that you definitely don't want to try, and things that you're curious about. So a lot of things you can break down into those lists so that you can understand yourself better, your pleasures better, and play with the whole concept of what would I like when it comes to hot or cold play. So you could say, for example, under the things that you would like, maybe one of those things would be, I would like, for cold play, I would like some ice cubes that have been put in a person's mouth, so they've been a little bit melted, ice cubes in the mouth, and then on the nipples. Now that sounds like fun for me, but it might not be fun for you. So knowing what would be fun for you, and that's like your own exploration chart, right? So that's all for you. What would you like, and what would you definitely not like? For example, I would not like hot wax on my clitoris. Not interested in hot wax on my clitoris. Not interested in fire burning on my clitoris. And I'm saying that because there are versions of hot play that do involve where people are allowing their genitals to be, I would say, scorched by flames. They might be squatting over a flame or those sort of things. And that isn't my preference, but that doesn't mean that if it's your preference that's weird. That's your preference. And if you enjoy it and you know how to make sure that you're not going to actually scar yourself or harm yourself, all the power to you. The first time I actually saw that kind of hot play, it was like 1997, and I had just finished university. I had a friend at the time who was into the internet, and he actually had opened my eyes to the whole concept of porn on the internet. I didn't know anything about it. I barely knew how to write an email. And he showed me these videos of these women who were, they were, I guess, sort of crouching or whatever over flames. And my whole reaction, I wanted to cry for them. For one, I had the point of view that they were doing this out of their like that they weren't consenting to it. Like I had the point of view that all women in porn were doing it against their will. I didn't have enough information to know that some people actually truly enjoy it and some people are doing it for survival. And I didn't have enough information at the time, so I just thought all women were being forced like slaves into pornography. And there are people who are, but not necessarily those ones were. So what is it that you would like when it comes to cold play? What is it that you definitely don't desire having when it comes to cold or hot play? For example, both ones. What do you desire when it comes to cold and hot play? What do you definitely not desire when it comes to cold and hot play? And what are some things that you don't really know enough about but you're curious about and would be willing to explore? So, for example, I don't know enough about having like soy wax poured onto my nipples, but I'm curious. I might like that. And I do actually own a really cool candle that is made from soy wax that has a little divot in the candle holder so you can pour it. So it has like a little spout. And if you're curious and you'd like one of those, you can find a link on my page on Inspired Choices Network. Actually, I have to update that link because all the links are changing. and or you can go to pureromance.com, and you can put in my name, Milica Jelenic, and it asks you who the rep is, and it should give you the option of Milica Jelenic from Ontario, Canada. That's one option. Anyway, so you can find those really cool candles on there. And you can do a lot of fun things with that too. So aside from, pouring it on things, those types of waxes, they're warm, so they don't burn, and they're actually designed so that you can use them for massage oils as well. So they can be a really lovely sort of addition to even like vanilla play. And what's vanilla play? Vanilla play is what your average person is doing out there. They're having sex with probably not a lot of kink involved, but adding some things like warm massage oils is one way to add a little kink and introduce a little cold and hot temperature play into your everyday average vanilla love life. And there are quite a few people who do like having like warm oils. Again, conversation is important. So some people really can't stand having oils on their body, and they can't stand the feeling or the scent of them. So conversation, communication. So remember, communicate with yourself and really think about like what are some of the things that you really would like to try with cold play and hot play. And one of them is that there are dildos out there that are made of glass that you can put inside your freezer, and you can have a cold dildo. Now there's an option too. One of the things to be aware of, though, just like taking if you took a popsicle out of the freezer on a really cold day and you went outside and you ate it, it's pretty much like the equivalent of sticking your tongue onto metal. You can pull the skin off of your tongue or the inside of your mouth. And the skin on the inside of your mouth is pretty similar to the skin on the inside of a vagina. So being super aware of that, sometimes you need to add some moisture to the cold so that you don't have an issue. And definitely that's something for you to do at your own discretion. And that is something for you, if it does intrigue you, to get information about how to play with things like cold or dildos out of the icebox. Like there's information available for you, so that if that's your thing, that you can look more into that for sure. But if you do want to know more about it, let's just use our logical sides of our brains, that something super cold going into a wet area can actually pull off the epithelials and things. So you want to be aware. You just want to know what's going on, and sometimes even letting it just warm up enough so that it doesn't, create issues inside the body. So some strange and true tips on that front. Just like if you wanted to heat up something, there are different materials that people use. Like some guys actually will heat up, for example, something like a squash. It's not a zucchini, and they might just heat it up for a few seconds in the microwave so that it's warm. They'll usually core it out first. With a zucchini, though, it can collapse, so if you cook it too long, it'll just explode and turn into mush. But you can use things like vegetables. That's pretty common, and you can put heat in them. And for example, warm oils, and you can use that as a masturbation sleeve. Some guys do that. And I personally don't know anyone that does it, but I do know that that is actually something that's out there. And there are different ways that you can introduce heat into the things that you've already got at home, whether it's the toys you've already got, or whether it's different things you've got, for example, oils that you might have around that you can warm up and use those already too. Certain oils are great for bodies and other ones are really not, so always using one that is both meant to be put on externally there are oils that are really not good. Like, for example, I wouldn't put like canola oil on somebody's body, but I would put a really good grapeseed oil probably on their body, or avocado oil, or even some quality grades of olive oil. But that is something that you need to get information on and not use oils that are going to be super, super hot or that are going to leave the person in pain if they're hot. So just knowing what tools are going to work is helpful. So what a fun time to like walk around your environment that you're in and look around and see what could you use that would be fun to either get to be really cold or warm, not necessarily hot to the branding stage, although that is a level of hot stimulation temperature-wise. So walk around, explore, see what's going to be fun to play with while we head to this commercial. So you're listening to The Pleasure Zone here on Inspired Choices Network, and we'll be right back after this commercial.
Are you secretly a voyeur, wondering what's going on in other people's sex lives? What if now is the time for a totally different sexual evolution? Are you interested in people who are pioneers of different sexual and pleasurable practices? Lean in now with Milica Jelenic, where she will entice you and your body to know your own pleasure zone. On the Pleasure Zone radio show with sensual movement artist Milica Jelenic, you'll receive tools, inspiration, and a foundation to allow yourself to receive more in your sex life, and quite possibly other areas of your life as well. Listen for The Pleasure Zone with Milica every Monday at 8 p.m. Eastern Time, 7 p.m. Central Time, 6 p.m. Mountain Time, and 5 p.m. Pacific Time on InspiredChoicesNetwork.com.
Interested in masturbating for money, copulating for consciousness, and pleasuring on purpose? 21 Days of Sexual Magicism with sensual movement artist Milica Jelenic is an exploration of tools, processes, and actions that you can use to create more for your life, your body, your money inflows, and so much more. Graduated learning for all levels of interest. Learn at your own pace via video classes or join the yearly live class. Take a peek at www.milicajelenic.com.
This is The Pleasure Zone with sensual movement artist Milica Jelenic. To participate in the program today from the U.S., call 815-880-TALK. That's 815-880-8255. From Canada, dial 613-800-8736. Or you can Skype us at InspiredChoicesNetwork.com. Or send your questions or comments via email to info@MilicaJelenic.com. Now, back to the program.
Hello, sweet pleasure seekers. Welcome back to the Pleasure Zone, where we're talking about cold and hot play. Such a fun conversation. For those of you who are interested in temperature play, you want to remember to have a conversation about this, because it can be a lot of fun, but you want to make sure that you know what works for you and you know what works for your partner. So before diving into this adventure with your partner, remember, you can make that list for what works for you, what you would really like, what you really don't want, and what you're willing to negotiate or play out that you've never tried before and you'd like to try and experience. And once you have these lists, you create yours, your partner creates theirs, or maybe you're having an orgy and you're all creating your list. And once you've got your list, you can exchange your list. And you might find that there are things that you have in common, or things that are like you might have on your list that you really, really like Coldplay, not just the band, and your partner is like, I really don't like Coldplay, but I don't mind giving you Coldplay. Don't mind, putting an ice cube in my mouth and then putting it on your nipples. That's okay, but I just don't want it on mine. Right? So then you can have these conversations. So if it's on your list and then you read their list of but it's definitely something I don't want. You can get into the conversation then of, is that something that you don't want on your body, but are you willing to gift it to me? And you'll find that quite often people are willing to gift things to the other body in the partnership, but maybe it's just not their thing. It's not their shtick, and it's not something that they actually would like to have done to them. And that's totally cool. So I think one of the other parts of the conversation to have is those safe words, and using some, you can have your own safe words, but some of the easiest ones to go with are the same as the traffic lights: green for go, yellow for, you're approaching my danger zone, but you're still okay, and then red is like stop. So, and with those safety words in place, you could be having some of the fun that's on your list of things you'd really like. Say, for example, ice on the nipples. You'd be like, yes, I really would like ice on my nipples. And then your partner's gifting that to you, but it comes to a point where it's like, whoa, too much. It's like, that's just too cold and it's just too much. That's when you need to be able to communicate. It's yellow, it's come to yellow, or it just goes from like green to red, like automatic. You just go red, just need to know how that works, especially when we're working with things that are cold and are hot, because they can create effects on the nervous system, and ultimately they can lead to, like, even to the point of emotional scarring. It can happen that people can feel quite traumatized by things like this. So respecting your partner's desire by listening to their safe words, also listening to their list, honoring their list, honoring yourself too. So when it comes to different things like cold and hot play, I wonder what you guys found around your house. I'd be so curious to hear. So if you are listening, you can join us in the chat room if you're listening here on November 25th, 2019, and you're listening live. Join us in the chat room of inspiredchoicesnetwork.com, and I'd love to hear what you found around your home, or think, had some thoughts with about around your home about what you could use for cold and hot play. Some of them you might find are super, super easy. Like, you've got the ice cubes. You might also have, a lot of people are doing smoothies these days, so you might find that there are frozen berries that you have. Nothing like a frozen raspberry on the nipples or in the belly button, or you never know, even just taking that frozen raspberry and dragging it across the body and licking that up after. Not only are you getting a temperature sensation, you're getting a flavor sensation. So you can have a lot of fun with that too. And here's some fun ideas that I'm just coming up with now. Sometimes I'm just so on the fly of fun ideas, but this one can be a lot of fun. So temperature ideas around putting even some frozen, like, grapes in your mouth, and, we have frozen grapes in our house. That's why I'm thinking about this. Putting some frozen grapes in your mouth and giving a fantabulous oral sex job to either your female partner or your male partner. But I can just imagine, if you do have a male partner, that having some frozen grapes in your mouth that you can rub up and down the shaft of their penis would be pretty freaking delightful. That's my opinion. But some men really don't like cold play, so again, you need to have that conversation. But if your partner does like hot play, you can have a lot of fun with candies that kind of warm up. So I find that the Greek restaurants in our area have these fabulous cinnamon candies, and I don't know if you don't like cinnamon, then this won't work for you, but cinnamon candies can get warm in the mouth, and they could be fun, just like the thought that I had with the frozen grapes. So the whole idea would be to get those cinnamon candies, one or two, and they can be super playful. It's kind of like the sensation of having Benoit balls going up and down the shaft, but Benoit balls go inside the vagina. So if you're not interested in having vaginal penetration, but you would like to gift the same kind of sensation, get yourself some round candies and play with those up and down the shaft. Oh, how fun is that? So a little fair warning on the front for women is that if you are interested in using candies or food or fruit on women, the higher the glucose factor, the higher chance for infection. So please do not insert those vaginally ever. And if you are going to put anything on the clitoris, that's something that you're going to need to rinse off after play so it doesn't sit and actually like get under the hood of the clitoris and like create agitation. So that is some areas to be cautious with, but you can still have fun. So ice cubes would not do that kind of effect on a clitoris unless you, of course, like put flavor into the ice cubes or something. But on the same front, you could use things like popsicles. And again, if you are using sticky glucose, fructose, whatever it is that's sugar-based, you are going to find that it will more than likely create some agitation if you don't wash it off. So just being fully aware of that. There are some other things that you can get that can be warm as well. Like some people like to warm up brandies and things like that. And you can have some warm drinks like that that can be lovely, but they can also be very burning. Like any alcohol on the genitals could really, really burn. So I would avoid putting alcohol directly on genitals or nipples because of the nature of the skin there. But you can put alcohol on other parts of the body like the back, and it can give a burning sensation. I know this because I learned this tip from my grandmother, who was Serbian and really into slapping something called rakia, which is a Turkish alcohol, and she would slap it on everywhere for just the sake of healing. I don't think she ever stuck it on her boobs, but she probably stuck it in between her boobs, because I know that on many times the remedy was slap that rakia on your chest, and it creates a burning sensation. Things I learned from my grandma. I actually have considered doing an entire series of sex tips I learned from my grandmother that I never knew were sex tips, but were totally something else. So yes, you can get some warming, heating sensations from different alcohols. If that's a sensation that you like, you can get it from the warm wax. You can get it from even just having different things like towels warmed from your dryer. When they come out and they're really, really hot, they're not going to burn you, but they are going to create a nice warming sensation. And again, that's a nice introduction into temperature play, where you can just have a warm towel that you lay on the bed for your partner to lie on, and then they can have it either on their front or their back while they're lying down and you're pleasuring them. And what a nice addition to just have that extra sort of comforting warmth on your body, right? It just sounds like fun. I feel like I'm just coming up with genius ideas on this show today. I hope you guys are thoroughly enjoying all my brilliant thoughts on temperature play today, and really just like the introduction into this, because it can get really intense too, where people, like I was mentioning earlier, are doing things like hanging their genitals over flames and stuff like that. And that's kind of an extreme end of it, and I'm just introducing you to the idea that this can be a fun addition. So in the same way that you can have a towel that's warmed up in the dryer, you could also put a towel, you just make it damp and put it in your freezer. You would also have a cold towel, which you could use for, again, various different things. You could drag that up and down the body. So, if you do like cold, just imagine this fun. Is you're lying on your tummy and your partner, your lover, has a towel that's been frozen, like a face towel that was frozen into your freezer, and then they take it out and they just drag the cold up and down your body, starting at your feet and going up your legs, up your calves, and just getting all those little nooks and crannies that usually get ignored, and just up and down your back. And what a sensation. Can you imagine having that going up your spine and then up and around your neck and then back down again and up and down your arms? So bodies, even I bet, thinking about that, even if you don't really think about being turned on by cold, I bet that somewhere in your body was like, that's intriguing. It's just a towel. And it's, not as cold as an ice cube, but it will give you sort of a tickly, cool, playful sensation. So that's something to think about. I bet you're all going to run off to your into your linen closets right now, grab yourself some face cloths, dampen them up, stick them in the freezer. Now's a good time for it because we are heading to our next and last commercial break. You're listening to The Pleasure Zone here on Inspired Choices Network, and we'll be right back after this commercial.
Are you secretly a voyeur, wondering what's going on in other people's sex lives? What if now is the time for a totally different sexual evolution? Are you interested in people who are pioneers of different sexual and pleasurable practices? Lean in now with Milica Jelenic, where she will entice you and your body to know your own pleasure zone. On the Pleasure Zone radio show with sensual movement artist Milica Jelenic, you'll receive tools, inspiration, and a foundation to allow yourself to receive more in your sex life, and quite possibly other areas of your life as well. Listen for The Pleasure Zone with Milica every Monday at 8 p.m. Eastern Time, 7 p.m. Central Time, 6 p.m. Mountain Time, and 5 p.m. Pacific Time on InspiredChoicesNetwork.com.
Interested in masturbating for money, copulating for consciousness, and pleasuring on purpose? 21 Days of Sexual Magicism with sensual movement artist Milica Jelenic is an exploration of tools, processes, and actions that you can use to create more for your life, your body, your money inflows, and so much more. Graduated learning for all levels of interest. Learn at your own pace via video classes or join the yearly live class. Take a peek at www.milicajelenic.com.
This is The Pleasure Zone with sensual movement artist Milica Jelenic. To participate in the program today from the U.S., call 815-880-TALK. That's 815-880-8255. From Canada, dial 613-800-8736. Or you can Skype us at InspiredChoicesNetwork.com. Or send your questions or comments via email to info@MilicaJelenic.com. Now, back to the program.
Hello, sweet pleasure seekers. Welcome back to the Pleasure Zone. And tonight we've been talking about cold and hot play. So I wonder what kind of things you guys found around your house. I wonder if you guys just went off and stuck those face towels into your freezers. I would love to hear your feedback and reports on your exploration into cold and hot play and how much fun you're having with it or what questions you have around it. I'm sure that if this is something that's totally new to you, you might have some questions, and it might have just busted your whole universe open thinking about all the things you already like that you can now turn and create them into cold and hot play. So one of the things that, I really love oral sex, and so to add cold and hot play to that, to me, is just such a bonus. And I had mentioned earlier, it was like you could get these hot cinnamon round candies that are, I find that I get them at the Greek restaurants, but you can find these cinnamon candies anywhere. And you could get other flavors, whatever flavors you like. Sometimes the mints are very cooling, so you can use mints. And it doesn't have to be a hard candy if you're worried that you might choke. You can get other things where, for example, you can get these really intense mouth sprays that are, back in the day there was Banaka. I don't know if Banaka still exists in the U.S., but I haven't seen it in Canada for a long time. But there are also things like Listerine strips, or there are mouth sprays that are like germ killer mouth sprays, and they have a cooling, warming sensation that you can use. There's also a whole slew of things that you can find in your regular sex toy shops that are heating and cooling sensation rubs. You can also find them on Pure Romance. .com, .ca, .oz, you name it, pure romance is moving across the world. So if you go on your local Pure Romance site, you can look me up as one of the reps, and you can get yourself some cooling and heating things. From that company in particular, there's something called Sensations, and they have a lot of different flavors of Sensations, which is a heating sort of plate oil that you can use. It's really fun. It's like heating lube, but it's more like an oil. And when you add saliva and you add a little rubbing action, it gets warm, and it feels really awesome to the person receiving it if they like the warm play. And there is a bit of like a cooling. It's one of those hot-cold kind of interesting sensations that goes on. And there will be other ones as well that you can find. That one is the one that's the most popular. It comes to mind. And remember that if there are, again, for women, don't stick that in their vagina, anything flavored or doesn't go inside the vagina, but it can go on the clitoris. It can go kind of around. Again, wash up the vulva after so that you're not creating any infection or inflammation, and be really clear with your partner as to whether they would like to receive that or not. Show them, explain to them, hey, I've got this really fun heat thing that I'd like to try on you. You cool with that? And then they can give you feedback. They'll probably, and you might get the feedback like I get from my husband, like, yeah, that was okay. Sometimes he's like, whatever. I just prefer you. Whatever. Thanks for the play. Thanks for the tryout. And so you might find, though, that through your exploration that it's fun just to even try and see, because maybe today will be the day that it's like a wow in their universe, and you're like, woo, I found something that was like blew your mind, and that's so fun. So there might be certain metal implements, too, that you have around your house, and things like spoons, actually. I know you're probably all going to want to throw up at this thought, but I think it can work and can totally be fun. But you could get a spoon, and you can either warm it, not to the point where you're going to burn your flesh, but even when it comes out of a dishwasher, it can be pretty hot right at first when it just stops. But if you wait a minute or so, it'll still be hot, but it won't scald you. And you can rub that up and down a body as well. A lot of flavor sensations, I've been mentioning rubbing up and down the body, but a lot of those temperature sensations you'll find are really evident in your mouth. Even, using all your senses in your mouth, you can even have them, near your ear, but I wouldn't shove the stuff inside necessarily, just for safety's sake. Touching with your hands and your skin sensations. And I'd also encourage you to see, what does cold smell like? And what does hot smell like? And how does your body react to the smell of hot and cold? I know it sounds weird. Their temperatures, we're supposed to feel them, but I bet some of you out there are super aware and sensitive and can actually smell them as well as having a visual sensation of hot and cold, and how your body reacts to that too. Some people get super turned on by things like hot tubs, just the sensation of soaking in the hot, or, running in the snow naked. And we have these people doing polar bear things all the time. They might be a little crazy to some of us, but they might actually be turned on by that. So good for them for finding a source to be turned on in public by running polar bear style into the snow and water. And for those people who are really, really turned on by the hot tubs and by the different things like saunas. I think beyond being healthy for your body, I think there's also the saunas are quite turn-ons for quite a few people, just because of the temperature. So I encourage you to play, and see what shows up for you. There can be so many different things in your home, in your life, that you can explore. Remember to have those conversations about what works for you, and using your safe words, and just making that list so that you can compare with your partner. I'm not sure about what my topic will be next week, but I'm sure it'll be great. See you then.
Thank you for listening to The Pleasure Zone with sensual movement artist Milica Jelenic. The Pleasure Zone returns next Monday at 8 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. Central, 6 p.m. Mountain, and 5 p.m. Pacific on InspiredChoicesNetwork.com. We hope you'll join us. Until then, have the best week of your life by choosing to be turned on and tuned in to your